What's a company secret you can share now that you don't work there? Health insurance dude. When you file a claim, it is often denied because they're counting on you not escalating it. Once you do, your case goes to a medical management group, which ought to be called the We Don't Want to Pay group. Keep escalating and involve your doctor. Fight for the insurance you paid for. Can confirm. Busted my knee, was on crutches BC I couldn't walk on it. Was denied BC they felt I wasn't in enough pain BC I didn't require a painkiller prescription. Doctor went back and forth and I was on crutches 2 months before they finally relented and I could get my surgery. Here's a question, why is the doctor responsible for fighting with a patient's insurance company? We don't get paid for it. We don't work for the insurance company. We don't control pricing of anything really, including our own fees. That's all the insurance companies and hospital corporation. And most importantly, the patients chose a specific insurance product. Why is the doctor being inserted in here? European here, so I don't know much about this type of insurance, but I guess it would be because a doctor is an expert so they can make sure there is no insurance fraud from useless operations and such. Though I agree it is stupid because a doctor is there to heal people and not for paperwork. The doctor's office submitted the first request to the insured company and it got denied, so I was told my case was up for review with other docs in that specialty. They got additional opinions and evidence, and applied again. Other than being informed of what they were doing, I didn't really need to do anything other than wait. I'm glad he didn't take no for an answer, but I guess that would be one less surgery he'd get paid for if he just accepted the no. Yup. We were told when in doubt deny. Most just accept it. The real problem is that people like you who actually work at these places don't anonymously let the public know etc. and/or report this nonsense to the appropriate agencies. But instead come on ready and say some form of just try again. No wonder the world is the way it is, folks. Report this nonsense to the appropriate agencies. What agencies? The system is working as it's designed to make profits for the insurance company. We need a healthcare system that doesn't involve for-profit insurance companies. I work for an insurance company, and maybe we're different, but I know for a fact that this doesn't happen where I work. Insurance claims involve dozens of interlocking steps and data exchanges between various parties. If any one of those parties screws up, whoever is next will get invalid information and might not realize it, especially if there's automation involved. A straight-up failure we can deal with. Some types of issues can be flagged for a person to reach out to the customer. However, there's a whole category of things that can go wrong that will cause a denial of some sort. It sucks, but it happens. For certain types of conditions and treatment plans, we assign a staff member to walk the customer through the entire process end to end to make sure there aren't any hiccups, even if the treatment takes months or years. Mortgage industry here, we're like cops, only answer the question asked, do not provide additional information to be helpful, it could screw you over. What are examples that screw people over? Can I please get your most recent pay stub, please? Sure. Here's the last year. Also, I was off work this time to this time and was technically let go and rehired, so the year to date starts over. Cool, now you haven't been employed for a full 6-month time period and I have to deny you. I get paid based on a monthly and quarterly bonus system, along with my normal pay. If you looked at my paycheck from a non-bonus day, you would assume my income for the year is only about 65% of what I actually make. If you looked at the quarterly bonus, which also pays out on the same day as the monthly, plus regular salary, you'd think I was making 2.5 times what I actually do. What do I do here? I don't actually know, but it seems to me that if you wanted a more expensive house you'd show them the bonus stubs, but then again, they're quarterly. You'd probably have to show them both and just tell them what you actually make, right? That was my line of thought, show them the last quarter's pay, maybe even my year-end report that shows how much I actually make. Doesn't really matter right now anyway, but good to know for potential futures. I also have this kind of issue. But I just accept it. It makes me live below my means and stay financially healthy. I earn mostly a lot more than what my normal salary is. So yeah. I see it as a protection for myself. Just see it as a blessing like I do. This isn't a company secret, but I worked part-time at a Domino's franchise in college. The owner was, at first glance, a short-tempered, critical penny pincher who did everything he could to save business money, right down to watching over your shoulder to make sure you didn't put too much cheese on a pizza. Cheese is called white gold in the pizza industry, even back in 2002, but after working for him for a while, you realized why he was so specific about the margins. Twice yearly, he would send out generous bonuses, in the form of money orders made out to his employees from his own personal savings account, to the college students working for him. The check/money orders contained the memo line "Keep learning." The amount of the money orders would be directly correlated to the profit margins of the stores he owned. The dude did legit profit sharing. After I graduated, I heard a rumor that he was trying to start up a small education grant trust that would benefit applicants of the Farmer School of Business at Miami University, but I don't think anything ever came of it. This owner also played favorites when hiring. Every single one of his managers was a former employee. 3 of the 4 managers at his stores when I worked there had graduated from my college with business degrees. All 4 of them had a small portion of their education paid for by Marvin Covington. Marvin Covington, Oxford, Ohio Domino's owner from Vevey, Indiana, died in 2017. That dude knew how to do business, and do it right. It would be a very sweet idea if you guys could band together to establish some sort of bursary for the school in his memory. Dude was clearly very passionate about education, and in this day and age it's nigh impossible to find someone in management who actually cares about their staff enough to profit share. If the staff are largely business grads, surely some of them have managed to make enough money in their careers that this could be possible. It would be a great way to honor his memory. I worked at L'Oreal. The cosmetics from L'Oreal and Lancome are practically the same. But Lancome costs like $20 more. Thank you. This comment saved me almost $30. I was just looking for a Lancome mascara. Lots of high-end beauty companies have a drugstore equivalent sister company. They'll launch new products in drugstores to test how they do before bringing it over to the more expensive brand. Why keep customers when you can make them guinea pigs? Yep. And then you call the number on the product and tell them exactly all of your side effects too. It's genius. I used to buy Lancome since it was one of the few mascaras that didn't clump or run all day. Last year I was tight on a budget, so I decided to try L'Oreal Lash Paradise. I'd heard it was a dupe for Too Faced's Better Than Sex, which was my go-to before Lancome. Well, I freaking love the L'Oreal product. Oh, similar case for me, so this is really promising. I used an Essence mascara before and it was awful, like it hurt my eyes, so I switched to Lancome. I'll try L'Oreal after my mascara runs out. Thank you. Thanks for saying this. Thought it was just me. I really wanted to like the Essence mascara because I had read very good reviews about it. Only used it twice and had to toss, because my eyes got very itchy and red and I don't usually react to makeup. My ex worked for another huge brand that made lotions. They put the exact same lotion into bottles with 3 brands at different price points. People attach a value to the price, so if they only sold it at the lowest price point, some people would think it's cheap and they would lose sales. If they only sold it at the highest price point, they would be pricing it too high for other individuals and lose sales. Which 3 lotions? I'm thinking it may be L Brands since they owned Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, and Pink. Aren't all of those cheap though? I guess that depends on your definition/perception of cheap. For me, for a long time, it was a treat to buy myself things from those places, and cheap was whatever was under $5 to $10 from Walmart. I worked at Olive Garden in the mid-90s while I was in college. Back then, they had the all-you-can-eat soup, salad and breadsticks lunch special for like $4.25 plus tax. Working lunch shift sucked. You would get probably 2 or 3 tables, and there was a 99% chance that all of your tables were 2 ladies getting this lunch special with water during their lunch break. After about a year, several of our best servers were mysteriously fired. It turns out, they were running a scam where they used the same receipt over and over again when these ladies paid for their meal with cash. Since we could get those 3 items ourselves from the back without ringing them into the system, these servers were just pocketing the cash for the entire meal. So instead of making like $5 to $8 in tips during a lunch shift like the rest of us dumb schmucks, they would make an extra $20 or so by stealing from the company. Server at Earl's in downtown Vancouver did something similar. Servers used to have the ability to move items to other bills/seats/tables if they rang that item to the wrong place. A server moved a 3.00 pop repeatedly every time somebody paid cash. By the time she was caught after many years, she had stolen about $15,000 apparently. That's a lot of soda. Oh, I worked for OG back in like 2017/2018 and I can confirm that scam is alive and well. I never did it personally, but I knew of servers that did. The managers started spot-checking tables to make sure everything was rung in. There was also coupon scams they would run by using the same coupon over and over. For example, a table got an app and paid cash. Enter coupon after they pay original total, pocket extra dollars, so then manager codes were required for coupons too. That is way smarter than what we did, grabbed the $2 coupon out of discarded newspapers and running that when there was a cash table. Also, if one person had soup and salad and the other had something else, I would ring them up as one meal plus soup and salad. That shows up as an add-on, and if you get a certain amount of add-ons they buy you lunch. Working there was crap. Nobody lasted because they knew it was cheaper to train replacements than it was to pay decently. If you made it 6 months, you were there a long time. T-Mobile has 2 coverage maps. The one they show customers and the real one that is internal shows the actual coverage. Diminishes by about 50%. Their coverage is built on a bed of lies. This is not surprising. Literally not true. I worked there for 15 years. Customers can access the same coverage map online that employees have access to minus some features for different bandwidths and such. He's not saying customers and employees have different coverage. He's saying that coverage is diminished when you look at absolute T-Mobile coverage versus contracted coverage. Diet Sprite and Sprite Zero were the exact same thing. They didn't change the recipe one bit. They just changed the name and design. I've always assumed this, but it's nice to get confirmation. Really? Interesting. I always thought I liked Sprite Zero more, but maybe it's because I like Coke Zero so much more than Diet Coke. I know at some point they swapped out some of the aspartame with the acesulfame potassium, ACE, that the other Zero products use, but it was not the same time that they changed the name. That was 20 years ago, so I can't remember the timeline now. I read an article that all the diet sodas went to the Zero branding because millennials and Gen Z don't want to be told that they need to be on a diet. As someone currently working for Coca-Cola in England, Coke Zero was introduced to target the male audience as Diet Coke was seen as too girly. Older Diet Coke adverts support this, and some men would shy away from buying it. They are completely different recipes though, and the company now lean more towards Coke Zero being as close tasting to Coke without the sugar and calories rather than the male/female reasoning. This Mormon church likes to talk about how much charity they do, but it's always tied to some form of missionary work or proselytizing. Particularly in UT, they would secure housing, furniture, food etc. to Iraqi refugees, and in exchange, these poor people who have had their whole life uprooted would have to be visited by and listen to missionaries drone on and on about the Mormon religion, and having the gall to ask these Muslim refugees if they want to get baptized after a few weeks. I know this because I, non-Mormon, was dating a Mormon girl back then, and I was asked to translate for the Iraqi families. I speak Arabic. Of course I never did. I told them the whole scam and told the Iraqis to act interested so they can keep getting charity. We scammed the scammers basically, lol. Excellent work. That's how every church charity program works. Including Saint Teresa. You are a true hero. Yeah, that is not a scam, that's charity work with missionary work combined. Almost every church ever does this. They aren't taking anything from anyone, they are helping them for nothing in return except maybe just listen to their message. I see nothing wrong with that. Usually if you tell them you are not interested, they will still be willing to help, especially Mormons. Maybe not the classiest thing to do right when people have had their whole lives uprooted and are also likely devout Muslims. Salvation shouldn't come at the price of changing your religion. Those people knew they were Muslims, and if they didn't want to be Muslim, they themselves would change their religion. I don't know if you have faith in Christ, but it's like someone were to tell me I'll give your homeless family furnished housing if you diminish your faith in what you believe to be your Savior and love ours instead. I would be heartbroken. Do I stay and disrespect my God, or do I go homeless with my family and pray it gets better? In their situation, they will have to choose the latter. It was cruel what the Mormons did to them. Long time ago the Islams did that to Vlad Dracula. Maybe Heads on Stakes sends a "Who's Your God Now" message more clearly. The Mormons are a cult who hate their own. Polygamy? Will always be tied to it, and no sex till marriage. Did you now know why the divorce rate is high? You buying it, take it on a test drive. Self-righteousness causes all kinds of intolerable bigots. If you grow up Christian and never really question missionary work, I can see how this would seem normal, I guess. But adding in some perspective as a Jew here, proselytizing is strictly banned for us. It's explicitly against Jewish law to seek converts and is also very offensive if someone does it to us. Doing good works with the motive of converting someone to our religion is unthinkable to us. Conversion to Judaism is allowed, and there is no difference between a convert and someone born into a Jewish family under our law, but we are never, ever supposed to seek to convert someone. Not only is it duplicitous to help others with an ulterior motive, but it also seeks to steamroll their culture and beliefs and is a massive overreach into their lives. Our philosophy is that if someone is truly meant to be Jewish, they will seek it out and come to us and want to do the required study and work of their own volition. The concept of missionaries is deeply upsetting to me because of all that, and I think a lot of non-Jews feel the same way even without explicit religious law forbidding it. If someone wants to do charity, they should do charity, no strings or sermons attached, otherwise it is not truly charitable. Missionary work always just seems like modern-day colonization. People need to keep their religion to themselves, methinks. I worked at a comic book store that offered a service where you paid a small premium to have send in rare comics to have them graded at CGC. A few months later, we had many customers coming in to check the status of their comics. We contacted the owner to see what was going on, and he would always claim that there was some distribution problem. Fast forward a few months, we found out he was taking customers' graded copies and selling them online while trying to return back issue versions of their original comics. How did this dude think that comic collectors who were sending in comics to be graded wouldn't recognize they weren't receiving their original comic back? LOL. I'm sure a few newer to the hobby wouldn't be the wiser, but man. I worked for a major hotel chain in housekeeping for over 10 years. The number of suicides and people who die naturally in their rooms is a lot higher than you'd think. I worked at a huge convention hotel with over 1,000 rooms, and it happened quite often. Unless it was a pretty gnarly mess, it would just get cleaned like normal and the next guest had no idea. At one of the hotels I worked at, a woman killed herself by drinking antifreeze. Her body was blue, blood, vomit, and poop everywhere. My friend who was maintenance saw it and couldn't sleep that night. Working at hotels will change you. Drinking antifreeze is a bad way to go. We've only had one death at the hotel I've worked at for 6 years. Folk had evacuated to the hotel on account of a hurricane, and an old man there with his wife had forgotten to bring his medicine from home from what we were told later. It was very sad for everyone. Well, that's super sad. Yeah, it is. Had a friend who worked for a bridal dress company. She would tell me all her stories after work. They intentionally will bring back the wrong dress in attempts to get you to try it on, fall in love, and buy a more expensive wedding dress. They'll walk you through the more expensive sections so you look through dresses out of your budget and want to try them on. They often forget to check if the dress you requested is in stock for the time frame you've requested, again so that you'll have to pay more for faster shipping or a nicer dress. It's a very predatory business masked by compliments, thinly veiled body shaming, and incredibly underpaid and understaffed stores. Everything marriage/wedding related is straight scam. That industry been scamming for years. One giant overpriced party, in which there's only one real winner: the bride. The vehicle modification shop at Chillicothe Correctional Institution in Chillicothe, Ohio dumps waste coolant from the machine shop into a storm drain that empties directly into the Scioto River, because the chemical disposal tank is a 55-gallon drum in the paint shop, and that's much too small. They can't throw me into solitary confinement for complaining anymore. Edit: this happens about once a year, when the machine's coolant reservoirs are emptied and the coolant replaced. It's not on a schedule, it's one of those things that you do when work is slow. Each machine holds 15 to 20 gallons, and usually you just add more as it evaporates, but eventually it gets nasty and needs replaced. It's supposed to go in a waste tote to be disposed of safely, which is what every non-government machine shop does. Being able to prove this is being done would require knowing when they're going to do this, and that's a decision that's often made spur of the moment. Hey, work is slow, let's have a cleanup day. There aren't any phones in the machine shop either. Edit 2, a container to store the waste properly costs $200. Why waste taxpayer money when we can just poison the taxpayers instead? Hey, I already submitted your comment to the EPA tip line, but maybe you can give more specifics? I'll say it. A place similar in name to Past Face Urgent Care, at least in the region I worked at, banned their front desk from informing customers that they have a credit balance to use toward their services and still required us to charge customers the full price on top of what we already owed them. Some accounts had like $500 of county pay that should have been refunded but weren't. I was actually reprimanded for applying the credit balance, because despite finance agreeing my method was correct, the regional manager said it was not a good look for the company and hindered her profits. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't even understand what you're saying here and how they could be owed co-pay. I worked for a doctor's office that owed thousands of dollars to patients. After I gathered all the info on what was owed, I was laid off. I'm talking a week after I finished the audits. I wonder if any of them were paid. You're right. It's why a lot of practices are so predatory and get away with it. For mine, I quit after getting negative performance evaluation from the regional director for it. I worked for a restoration company. One time an elderly woman called them to clean her house. She was a hoarder or there had been a fire. I can't remember. Anyway, the company charged $57,000 for the work to be done, but in actuality they couldn't even get the charges to add up to $20,000. She couldn't file this on her insurance. There are other examples of gross overcharging, but this is the worst I know of that wasn't on the large loss side. The lesson here: if you have water, fire, mold, or hoarder damage and call in a company to clean it up, go through every line item on the invoice. Every single one. I had a mold remediation and I did go through every line item and made them explain to me the reasoning of their charges. It ended up knocking off around $3,000. I had someone quote me $10,000 plus 4 black mold and it wasn't even black mold. Also, the way they were trying to terrify me about black mold was insane. They freaked me out bad enough that I didn't go back home that night and made a doctor's appointment for my kids first thing the next morning to check on them. That was when my doctor told me that black mold was only dangerous for people who are predisposed to being allergic to it. That it would cause asthma flare-ups and different things like that, and since we had already been staying there for a month with no issues, we probably didn't have an allergy to it. He said that as long as we wore a face covering we could clean it up ourselves and not worry too much except maybe having minor allergy symptoms. The company that gave me the estimate was so predatory and literally made us fear for our lives and safety. He also was trying so hard to have us start on the work immediately before even having proper testing to let us know what kind of mold it was. We ended up cleaning it up on our own. Edit, just want to add I am not a mold expert. The advice my doctor gave us was based on our situation. Not all situations. Home Depot. Most security cameras are fake. Easy to steal and most stores have no security/loss prevention. Buy the clearance items that end in 3 cents. After that, the next step of the markdown process is the dumpster. Dial 676 on any desk phone to live page on the overhead speakers. Fun to mess with that. Buy the products in front, it's newer. The old product gets pushed behind continuously. If you see a reduced tag item, usually larger items, appliances, vanities, etc. W/slight damage, ask someone to scan for the price. Most times they're not updated and will be cheaper than the tag says. Free bottles of water for customers behind the customer service desk. I can assure you Home Depot has very real cameras and they have a lot more loss prevention than you think. Source: I was arrested from Home Depot. There's a whole section in your training about me. I still work here, but everyone please get a copy of your medical records from every place you've been to. Keep a hard copy in your home. Because I have horror stories from working in medical records since 2007. Working in a field that involves medical records, I totally agree. The number of times I've seen false diagnoses, other people's information mixed in, and assorted other crazy stuff is too high. It was only caught because the doctor was going on and on about my treatment for X that incorrect drug would have treated, and I was confused about WTF they were meaning. The number of times I've seen false diagnoses. Don't even get me started on these people. Almost every time I mention a concern about something that has a name, I find that thing on my list of diagnoses. No tests were conducted. Some things are on my list of diagnoses multiple times, with different wordings and codes. I suspect there's shenanigans afoot, but I don't know enough about medical billing and medical coding to be sure. They routinely add things to the claim that are obvious fabrications. Medical supplies? They never even used any, and it was rejected on the claim, and they never said a word. Any way to make a quick buck, apparently. Sometimes they make me go into the office and pay another copay just to get a refill that isn't even for a controlled substance. And that's when there aren't any hospitals involved. It only gets worse from there. I used to work as a receptionist at an upscale salon. While I was there, the salon introduced a new line of products marketed towards men. Up until that point most of our products were marketed towards women, but the execs saw that we were getting more male customers. Every item in the men's product line was about half the cost of our other products. The men's shampoo was the exact same shampoo the salon had been selling for years, but because they put it in black packaging with the word man on it, it was half the price. The owner's explanation was, well, men don't want to pay that much for hair products. For the rest of the time I worked there, every time a woman came up to buy that shampoo I'd tell her that the men's shampoo was the exact same product for half the price. Which the exec was happy about, because he saw good sales for the male shampoo he introduced. But wouldn't he notice the decrease in women's shampoo sales, or lack of increased sales? As an exec or business owner, I would definitely make sure that someone was monitoring whether the men's product was cannibalizing the women's profit after being introduced. This should be a no-brainer. I used to work surveillance at a casino. From something like 3 stories high ceiling, we could zoom in on money on the table games and read the serial numbers of the bills. We could see the pips on the dice. Policy was to not look down blouses. This is true and also very annoying because I work on the floor and the guys in surveillance can't be bothered to do their job and give us a lot of HRMM can't really see anything when we call them. They're busy looking down a blouse. Crap stealers do it all the time when on stock. Instead of pushing the dice to her, you make her lean all the way into the table to reach them. It's called short sticking. Edit, when on stick I mean. I was born with a short stick. In the United States, one company's bread and butter was simply reboxing and relabeling computer monitors from China to make it seem like they were from the company and made/assembled in some way by them. I work for a wholesaler. You would be surprised how many companies simply source merchandise and sell it without ever touching it. We ship it direct to their customers for them, just swap the return address for theirs. I worked at a company that was basically a warehouse with some offices built in a corner. I was hired to run marketing ads. The pay was great because I learned a lot with AdWords and Amazon reselling, which led to an uptake in sales. The owner was Chinese and had connections to some warehouses in Guangdong and Shenzhen, China, where he literally just ordered products off their catalogs. We had our US-made logos slapped on their products, and the owner demanded we act made in America. I got out as soon as I could. So unethical everything about it was, but boy did eBay and Amazon love us. Almost everything on Amazon is the same setup as my above example. Next to nothing is made in the US anymore and sold on Amazon/eBay. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.